Welcome to the Startups Without Borders podcast. I'm Valentina Primo, and I'm the founder of this platform, this community, and this movement for entrepreneurs who are starting new ventures while starting new lives. Each week, we'll be sharing inspiring interviews with the most audacious startup founders while highlighting resources for anyone starting up. Gear up to get some real-life advice. You're listening to the Startups Without Borders podcast, episode 14. If you've been on our site, you've probably seen this figure, but it's worth repeating over and over again. The lack of diversity is costing the tech industry a missed opportunity worth almost $400 billion. But what if we started looking at migration as an opportunity? What if we leveraged on this diversity to build more innovative startups that can build different solutions to problems we're not even seeing? Today, we're bringing yet another panel discussion from the Startups Without Borders Summit. Egyptian power lady Yara El Bradiy sits with two Egyptian entrepreneurs experiencing diverse ecosystems in Jordan and the UK, Mohamed Salah and Ahmed Shereen. For the next panel, we're going to talk about ecosystems, startup ecosystems, and the importance and the role of diversity. And we have a really, really cool and interesting mix of speakers and backgrounds. It's going to be nus Arabi, nus Inglesi. So let me introduce you to the next panelists coming from the UK, all the way from the UK, but he is actually Egyptian. He has a background in so many fields, it's hard to introduce him. He's an investor, he's an entrepreneur, he's a researcher, and he's just finished his research in startup ecosystems together with the university in Scotland. So please give it up for Ahmed Shereen. The next panelist comes all the way from Jordan. He's the founder of Social and Tech, and he's the country manager of Startup Grind as well, Mohamed Salah. And our incredible moderator from Egypt, she's an Obama Fellowship leader. She is a super amazing communicator, interviewing, and moderator, Yara El Bradiy. Give it up for her.
Thank you, Valentina, for introducing all of us. Thank you so much for having us today. احنا هنحاول نبقى نص عربي نص انجليزي كده ونحاول على قد ما نقدر نخلي في ميكس يعني عشان اللي كده يفهم واللي كده يفهم. مبدئيا احنا مبسوطين قوي ان احنا معاكم النهارده ودي مش اول مره ليا مع Startups Without Borders و I'm incredibly grateful لوجود حاجه زي كده في مصر وفي الوطن العربي working towards making a more inclusive ecosystem. وده التوبيك بتاع البانل بتاعتنا النهارده. واللي احب يعني ارحب تاني بالبانلست اللي معانا النهارده عمرو شيرين researcher and a serial entrepreneur. ممكن نسقف له قوي. ومحمد صلاح the founder of Social and Tech and the country manager of Startup Grind Jordan. فممكن نسقف له هو كمان. طيب عشان اعرفكم بنفسي وتعرفوا انا مين. انا اسمي يارا البريدي زي ما فالنتينا قالت. حاليا بشتغل ميديا بروفيشنال وحاليا بعمل الماسترز بتاعتي في انجلترا في الميديا اند ديفلوبمنت وهكون المودريتور بتاعت البانل بتاعت النهارده والتوبيك بتاعها diversity and ecosystems and how we can create more diverse ecosystems. That's why I want to start by asking our panelists, what is diversity in ecosystems from your points of view, and how do you see that we can create more diverse communities?
Okay, so I see diversity on so many different levels. So if we look at the country's ecosystem, for instance, so as a country, it has so many different entrepreneurial ecosystems. It is an ecosystem, an overall ecosystem, and then it has so many different ecosystems. Let's say there is one for social enterprises, or this is how it should be. There's one for social enterprises. There is another one that's mainly focusing on tech. There's perhaps an ecosystem that's like focusing on, or there is a university ecosystem where each one has a diversity on its own. So if we look at any of those ecosystems, you will see that there is a diversity on the level of the support organizations that it contains. So each ecosystem would have like different incubators, you would have accelerator programs, you would have the financing. So many different pillars. Each one would provide a different service that would help a startup and put it on a fast track growth. And then you would have the human capital and diversity in the human capital. And this is the most relevant one, perhaps. If we take a look on the university's ecosystem, which is the one that I truly believe in, this is the one that's like, that would promote high growth, and it's the one that would promote regional development. It has the potential to be the most diverse ecosystem, especially because of the international students in universities. It depends on the country, it depends on perhaps the region, but if we take a look at universities in UK, you will see that around 70% of the students, they are international students. So they are coming from all over the world with different backgrounds, different cultures, and they enrich the ecosystem massively. So it's extremely important to have diversity on all those different levels.
Good morning, Yara. I would like to start by, before explaining diversity to me, by saying diversity is mostly out there. Working on this diversity to become an inclusion is always, for me, what matters. So how many persons we have here from a country other than Egypt? Cool. How many from here from cities other than Cairo? Cool. This room is right now, from a location point of view, is diverse. But if everyone here is not working with everyone, this is not an inclusion. So basically, we can have a very diverse room, but we decide to live, everyone in this room decide to live his own bubble and never work together. And this will not get us to, you see that when you said, I would say the enrichment, the impact of this diversity will never happen unless these people come together. And
maybe the connection or
coming together for me is inclusion. Usually when you go out to the street, when you go to your workplace, when you go to anywhere in the world, there is some sort of diversity today. Because for so many reasons, people are leaving their hometowns to go work somewhere else, whether by their own choice or by they're forced to do that. So as long as as everyone is not working together, I would love to call it diversity. And there is no achievement in diversity. Like if you say my country is diverse, or my room is diverse, or my workplace is diverse, that's a good step. But that doesn't mean you're gonna get any benefit out of that unless everyone in this room, or most of them at least, decided to come and work together, which is what I call inclusion. Diversity for me comes on so many different layers and levels. Number one, to have a diverse ecosystem, or to call some place or whatever a diverse place, you have to start by basically eliminating all the barriers for the minorities to get into this place. So if you're a country, for example, the regulations or the policy need to be accommodating foreigners or immigrants, or I would say refugees in some cases. If you're a workplace, you need to make sure your policy is basically giving women and men the same right, giving other minorities based on sex, based on color, also I would say an access to that place. Also, there is more layers, and the more we go down, the more the layers we need to add.
Amazing, amazing. But let me take from your amazing theory and pull some lines and questions to lead the conversation. So if it's this good and everyone will be happy when we have a diverse community or a diverse ecosystem, what hinders it? What's the problem with creating a more inclusive ecosystem? Why is it not happening that much?
Well, I think it depends on which level of the ecosystem we're talking about. But there is lots of factors that would hinder diversities. Many of them, you can say that like rigid policy makers and decision makers. So policies mainly hinders diversity big time. And culture norms, in some cases, they hinder diversity. It depends. So in some cultures, perhaps, they are not really pro-women working in certain jobs. So this affects the hiring, or working at all in some cases. So yeah, it does affect policies, definitely. Policies big time. So if we're talking about immigration, you would have immigration policies that's like extremely hard in some cases. And it really affects the economy, because you would have startups that's mainly focusing on the same problems. The immigration is not really there in the country, so it's not really providing the diversity in ideas and innovation, so it is the same thing over and over again. While in some countries, if you take, when they are open for immigration, you're going to see a shift in the economy. They provide solutions for stuff they're thinking out of the box. They are coming perhaps from backgrounds where the resources are not that available, so they come up with ideas that's very different. They are using whatever it is that they have to come up with solutions with the resources that they have. So it really benefits the economy. So it depends on the level of the ecosystem. You will see that there is a different factors that it does affect and hinder the diversity.
For me, the majority always have the main responsibility to make any place diverse or inclusive. So, for an example, why a lot of places would say would be less friendly with women empowerment, because basically the business world is dominated by men, and it will stay the same way for some time. This is not going to be. It's changing, but this is not going to be. I would say, fully inclusive world anytime soon, for so many reasons. Men have most of the power and almost all the money. Almost, I would say. There is no woman in the top 200 most, I would say, richer persons in the world have made her money like in a I would say from scratch, like Jeff Bezos or Mark Zuckerberg. So basically, this is not women. When it's come to women empowerment, for an example, we cannot come and say women have to go out there and push for things. They have to push, but the majority have to believe in that push. And this push and this change is very, very important, as he said, from a commercial point of view, from a business point of view, before a community point of view. Because if you have more inclusive community, this brings a lot of, I would say, stability. If anyone in the community feeling left out or feeling pressured, they will mostly act in a way is that it's not gonna, in most of the time, benefit the community at all, or benefit even the majority, because a lot of time the majority will think that, okay, we're good, we're fine, we don't have to think of others. We're all Egyptians, so we don't have to think of the foreigners living with us. Because if you're part of the majority, you usually feel like the others are basically speaking more, and there is a lot of, I would say, highlights on them. But if you ask a lot of men today, they will tell you women have more rights than us. And when you break it down to them, they start like, okay, they don't have any rights, or they don't have most of the rights we have. At the end of the day, there are so many aspects in the culture and the community and the business world that is not allowing, I would say, women, black minority, certain religion minorities, all kind of minorities. And the solution to that is definitely not by coming and saying you need to have 20% women in your company and 10% black.
Which is quota, basically.
This is forcing diversity. And forcing diversity will never lead to inclusion, because at the end of the day, if you don't believe in what you're doing, as a company owner or a leader, you're gonna hire, and we see this a lot in the Arab region. We will see a lot of CEOs on stage saying we have 40% out of our human capital are women. And when you ask them, how many chiefs you have in your team, he will say 0. How many senior managers, he will say 0. This is what forcing diversity looks like. There is good numbers, but in fact, these numbers are not going to change the current situation at all.
Yeah, because diversity is basically like increasing the pool of candidates, not just putting a certain quota for people to be included. It's just like expanding your view, like to have more people, but not to put certain people like on spot that you are the ones who should be there. You wanted to add something to this point, yeah?
Yes, sometimes actually investors can be a hindering factor. Like there's a lot of investors out there that like their main focus is high tech. So they really want to invest only in high tech. So
enabled.
Exactly, or tech-enabled startups.
Stealing my terms now.
You will have a lot of entrepreneurs, and there's perhaps they have an amazing idea, but now they're trying to shift their idea to be tech-enabled so that they can raise funds and that they can find the right investor. But there are very good ideas out there that it doesn't have to be tech-enabled. So like, for instance, social entrepreneurship. There is not so many investors that would like to invest in social entrepreneurs. So investors, they can be a hindering factor. So the diversity also in the type of startups, sometimes because of investors, you'll find that it's being channeled towards a certain space.
Just want to add to that. If this is your only issue with investors, that means we're in a very good place. Investors are one of the main challenges why women are not having more startups and their startups are not growing. They're responsible of less successful people who are having a colored skin. So there was a friend of mine, she's at Harvard. She did a research on what investors do the minute they see someone who is not white. So basically, if you're white on that stage now presenting,
I am white.
I'm saying so
we're having a heated discussion. Okay.
So if you're white, all the questions will be how you're gonna grow your company in all aspects. If you're a woman, the first question will be, are you married? If you're married, do you have kids? If you have kids, are you going to focus enough on your company? What's going to happen if this doesn't work? So basically, the whole research she conducted was, the outcome was basically, we ask white men all the positive questions, everything about growth, and we ask everyone else everything that is more related to failure. So if you're on a stage and there is so many investors sitting out there, and there is 4 judges, let's say, sitting here, when they ask me, when they challenge me, especially on growth or scalability, everyone else will be more, I would say, I will be less appealing to invest in. But if there is a white man, especially if he's tall like you, you brought it, he will be basically getting all the question in this way, because there is a perception in the culture the white man was, especially if he's tall or have Dave name, because Dave is a key to success. This is, by the way, a fact. There's more Dave CEOs in the United States, more than the women who are CEOs. So if you're Dave, white man, you're good. Everyone will be expecting you to be a successful entrepreneur. The rest doesn't have this privilege.
So I really like where the conversation is going, but like to keep us also on track. I know, Amru, you have a huge experience with innovation and diversity, and basically your research was about diversity in UK universities. Can you give us maybe an insight, more details on your research, what your findings led you to? Like, can you please tell us more about it and how innovation and diversity in innovation is important?
Sure. So one of the I think one of the very interesting findings was that the most successful entrepreneurial ecosystems are the ones that it's either designed by an entrepreneur or managed by an entrepreneur, or the majority of the people who are working in the ecosystem, they are entrepreneurs by nature. So the reason for that is that the ideas that they come with, it's very practical. So it's really, maybe it's ideas that most academics won't really think of when designing an ecosystem. Maybe it's not even abiding by a theory or a framework, but it's very practical and it's on point. There was another finding that's very interesting as well, that's most entrepreneurs, I'm talking about universities, the entrepreneurial ecosystems. So most entrepreneurs coming out of this ecosystem, they are international students that become immigrants. The local students, they are in their comfort zone. They don't really want to start their own business. They are used to working like their mom and dad for 30 years in the same place, and then retire and work on their retirement, and this is it. So in order to start boosting the economy, they started right from scratch educating local students what is being an entrepreneur is like. And the best way was to do that was workshops and trying to combine international students with local students, doing some activities where they get to learn from them, like how do they think out of the box and get out of their comfort zone. And this increased the number of local students starting their own business by like from 10 to 15% year to year. And this is massive. So international students that become immigrants, they are really a key when it comes to economic development. So this is why most of universities right now, they are really trying even to increase the number of international students. If they have like 40% international students, they would like to make it perhaps like 60%, 70%. In some cases, you will find that 80% they are international students.
Amazing. And if we speak also about diversity in hiring, you just mentioned that you can have 40% of your team women, but that doesn't mean anything if they are not included in decision making. How can hiring or how can diversity be an important tool to empower companies or organizations to have better outcomes? Or why is diversity important in hiring, basically?
I just want to add something to what Amr has just said. Silicon Valley, Berlin, Singapore are considered top 3 ecosystems in the world. Why? These are our ecosystems have been built completely by immigrants. If we look today at most of the successful founders in Silicon Valley in specific, are all immigrants. If you look at Berlin today, the amount of refugees who are founding their own companies and becoming successful is also massive. Singapore is very diverse, and it's almost the same like Silicon Valley. So why it's important to have diversity when you hire? So many reasons. Number one, let's talk backgrounds. If you're developing a program and if you're working in some sort of an international or a regional an institution, you need and this product is going to be more than, I would say, for one city or one country. You need to have other perspectives. So basically, and now I'm talking about backgrounds in terms of nationalities, in terms of the industries the employees coming from. So basically, if let's say we're building an entrepreneurship program for the GCC. If you don't have anyone in your team from GCC, this program will mostly fail. Because in most of the cases, you will know nothing about the ecosystem over there. You will not know nothing about the challenges they're facing, or which is one of the most reasons why I think you always need to have someone local or someone from the places you're serving is localization. So if let's say I bring a product from Scotland to Egypt, what's going to happen is basically, if it's not localized, let's say we do Arabic Fusha, like what's going to happen regularly is we will turn the English into Arabic Fusha. How many Egyptians will use a product talking to them in Arabic Fusha instead of the Egyptian accent? Thank you. So barely any Egyptians. So this is number one. From a business point of view, you need to have multiple nationalities, multiple backgrounds. At Social and Tech team, we have an Iraqi, Palestinian, Egyptian, and Jordanian.
Amazing.
So we do work in Iraq, and we have to. Iraq is like Egypt. You have to speak to them in their accent. So basically, without this guy, we will never be able to basically write in Iraqi, and they mostly will not understand us. And this is a very, 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 I would say, on the layer is on the surface. Other things when he go over there, his ability to execute is way much better than me going. Taking into consideration, I could be in a higher leadership position, but he know what exactly happening over there.
Amazing, but like taking from this point, like the layers of hiring, will he stay stuck at this particular square where you're putting him as a good executor just for your own business purposes?
No, he's our...
Or will he grow in the like...
No. This guy is running all our business development everywhere. So basically, I just mentioned the fact that his Iraqi background have helped us in Iraq. It's not just, and this is not his only role. This is 1% out of his role. This is the thing. The other thing, when we don't take into consideration, let's say your company works in Cairo, and you're serving Aswan, and what's going to happen is you hire everyone from Cairo. The same thing will happen. You're going to do something that is not market fit. In most of the cases, you will not be able to communicate it right. When it's go to minorities, women, and minorities in general, if you're serving women, for an example, and the majority of your team is men, even if you're serving men, a lot of things men do in their life, it's a women decision. So even if you're selling, this is a very funny thing to mention. If you're selling something for beards, this is something women mostly will be a very good contributor in the decision. There is many other things. True. If you're selling for kids, if you're selling for... There are so many things happening at our homes are women-based decisions, even if women have nothing to do with it in terms of using these products. This is the thing. The other thing is also when we look at data, the more women you have, the more growth and the more profit you have in almost every case have been measured.
So I think we have 5 more minutes. So maybe we can have a couple of questions before getting your recommendations about how we can create a more inclusive and diverse ecosystem. So, في أي أسئلة, questions, burning questions? Hi.
I'm studying migration and refugee studies, and I'd be really interested to know how you can increase socioeconomic diversity, not just different nationalities, but also socioeconomic diversity, especially in universities where a lot of the students come from wealth and are coming with a lot of, I would say, economic capital. So how can we increase economic diversity as well, including locals, including nationalities, or people coming with less economic capital?
Yeah, I think this is mainly it has to be increased by policymakers and decision makers in universities, and perhaps even a layer above that in maybe the Ministry of Education. But this is where there has to be certain grants given for people coming from perhaps less fortunate countries or regions. And this is actually the case in so many different countries where you will have lots of grants given for a big number of students. And it's extremely beneficial. They really add a lot to the ecosystem. They come up with amazing ideas. They are coming up with very innovative ideas all of the time. So it is for policymakers actually to do that. And it is happening in so many countries. Perhaps this is not the case over here, and maybe not in the Middle East, But definitely in the Western world, so this is something that's happening all the time. So in order for you like to apply for a grant, it's not really something that's that complicated, and most of the time there is big amount of money that's allocated just for that, because they can see the value that they bring, and even they can see the value that they bring within class. When it's like for discussions within classroom, they bring a lot of value. So they are trying to push for that.
So before wrapping up, I think we need to touch upon your recommendations to support a more inclusive and diverse ecosystem, startup ecosystem. So one or two recommendations from each of you. What can we do right now? Simple people like us, we don't need governments or big people watching us doing anything. It's us. Where can we start?
Let's start by saying in most of the cases, someone from the majority will be hiring. So when people enter the room, don't judge them by anything other than their ability to deliver the work you need from them and how much they can contribute to your culture, to your company culture. Everything else, you think it's different. It's an advantage. It's not disadvantage at all. If you think this person will not succeed in your company because she's a female and the rest of your team are males, you're mostly not right. If you think this person is coming from a different religion or coming from a different background and will not help your company, that's completely wrong, and because every one of these people will bring a new perspective to your business. This is number one. The other thing is basically the recommendation is always on policy level. Governments, private sector companies, mostly private sector companies, because in most of the countries, you will not find any policy saying you cannot hire, let's say if you're in the Western culture, don't hire a Muslim or a black or colored person, and you will not say any policy here or anywhere else discriminating people over gender or religion or background. But the culture, which is in most of the cases not just policy, it can be culture too, is basically not allowing these people to go through. If the HR manager or the hiring people responsible for hiring within the company are basically deciding before how this person gonna behave or how this person gonna act, or taking into consideration things that they think it's different and is not right, you will not get any sort of diversity, and for sure this diversity will not lead to any inclusion on later stages. When it comes to the leadership, because a lot of time, as I said, you will see a lot of minorities within the structure, but you will not see them becoming decision makers. Basically, and I'm sorry to say that, when it comes especially in the Middle East to women, because this is a big topic in the Middle East today, men are mostly are responsible for women are not going out there. Not because of they're not supportive, but because of just they have perceptions that is not right. Women are not hard workers. Women are not gonna stay if we after work if we need to do something. That's not that in most of the cases not right, and we need to as men, we have to take responsibility of what our grandparents have done, grandparents have done. We have created an ecosystem, we have created a culture, we have created a business world that is not for women, are not for so many other minorities too. And we have just to take a responsibility and take a step back and start thinking of not only how this is not fair and this is not right for our community, is also not right for our businesses. And it's okay to say we have done mistakes. Men, it's okay if men says we have done something wrong when it's come to that. Because honestly, I don't think anyone else is responsible for that. Just to be honest,
Men are responsible.
men are definitely responsible. We are the main thing. And I'm saying we are, including myself, we are the main thing that is wrong with the world today when it's come to diversity and inclusion.
Okay, thank you, Mohamed. Amr.
Well, for me, I would say that immigration is key.
Immigration?
Is key, yeah. So more lenient policies towards immigration. Like there are so many countries that they were against immigration, and then they can see actually the difference that they made in other countries where they were pro-immigration, like in terms of diversity for like the type of businesses, how they benefited the economy overall and enriched the culture even of the country. So now the demand for more lenient policies towards immigration is like it's a ground swelling thing. So it's coming even from the bottom layer. So the people are demanding why the policies are that rigid. Please allow more immigrants in, because they know that they're actually going to create more jobs. They're going to create more opportunities. They're going to really make a difference. So, the more the demand is coming actually from the public, and the more accepting towards immigration, you will see that they have really a power to change the policies, even if like politically it's not accepted in a certain way in some countries for whatever reason. So like it really needs to be a world without borders, 100% when it comes to immigration.
I think the Syrian experience in in Egypt is a great example. I won't say immigrants can. I think the experience in Egypt, how Syrians have done to, I would say, the hospitality industry in Egypt. No one can deny the hospitality industry in Egypt today is way much better because of Syrians.
Even look at Germany.
No, for Germany,
look at Germany. Look at the population of immigrants in Germany, and how much they really benefited the economy over there.
I live in a country where 50-something% out of the whole population are refugees and immigrants. So I know how much it really can change countries and make it not only more successful, but honestly more nice to live at, more welcoming to different cultures, and makes you feel like home. Taking into consideration, I live in Jordan as an expat. I always feel welcomed over there, and I think this didn't happen overnight. These guys have been welcoming everyone, almost everyone, all their history.
You like what you hear? Then leave us a review on Apple Podcast. You can also get exclusive access to all the updates, the upcoming events, and the most inspiring stories by subscribing on startupswb.com/subscribe. I'll repeat it, startupswb.com/subscribe. I'd like to thank our amazing podcast partners in Egypt, Rcast, for producing this entire season.